My name is Nadia Owens, and I am 34 years old. 3 weeks ago, my mother rang my doorbell for the first time in 9 years. She was wearing a gray wool coat and sensible shoes, and she was holding a carry-on suitcase in one hand and a folded piece of paper in the other. I watched her through the side window before I opened the door. She stood on the porch for almost a full minute, smoothing her coat, adjusting the handle of her suitcase, rehearsing something with her lips. Then she rang the bell again. I had been expecting her for months. Not hoping, expecting. There is a difference between those two words that 9 years of silence will teach you very clearly. I opened the door. She looked at me the way people look at something they thought they lost and just found in a pawn shop window. Older than they remembered. More expensive than they expected. She did not say she was sorry. She did not ask about her grandchildren by name. She did not say I missed you, or I was wrong, or any of the 700 things that might have made this moment feel like something other than what it was. She said, "Nadia, I think it is time we talked about the family situation." Then she held up the folded piece of paper. I stepped aside and let her in, because I had been ready for this conversation for 9 years, and I had something for her too. Sitting in the bottom drawer of my home office desk, under a stack of quarterly tax filings, was a navy blue 3-ring binder. 41 tabs. 9 years of documentation. Every returned birthday card still in its original envelope. Every unanswered voicemail, transcribed and printed. Every screenshot, every forwarded text, every Facebook post I was not in. She brought a list of what she wanted for me. I had kept a list of everything she had done to me. And before that Tuesday morning was over, she was going to read every single page. But first, let me take you back. Because you need to understand where I came from to understand what I built, and you need to understand what I lost to understand why I kept a binder for nearly a decade instead of throwing every piece of it into a fire. I grew up in Crestwood, Indiana. Small enough that everyone knew which car belonged to which family. Big enough that there were 2 rival churches, and enough gossip to keep both of them busy 6 days a week. My father, Raymond, worked in insurance for 33 years. Same office, same coffee mug, same route home. He was a man who believed that consistency was a virtue and that silence was often kinder than the truth. My mother, Beverly, believed almost the exact opposite. She was the kind of woman who organized everything: the church fundraiser, the neighborhood watch, the annual block party, the mental files she kept on every person who had ever crossed her or her family. She did not forget. She did not forgive easily. And she absolutely, under no circumstances, tolerated anything that she considered a threat to the image she had spent her whole adult life constructing. My younger sister, Camille, was the family favorite, and she knew it the way beautiful people know they are beautiful. Not arrogantly, just factually. She walked through the world assuming warmth, and warmth followed her everywhere. Mom braided her hair first in the mornings. Dad saved the funniest stories from work for her. I was the older one, the responsible one, the one who maintained a 4.0 GPA and got a scholarship to Indiana University and was handed a card at departure that read, "We are so proud of you. Come home soon." I kept that card. It is still in my desk, right next to the binder. I met Daniel Okafor the second week of my sophomore year in a corporate finance study group. He was there because he was brilliant and rigorous and had a way of explaining complex things in plain language that made everyone around him feel smarter. I was there because I was pre-accounting and running on 3 hours of sleep and lukewarm dining hall coffee. He sat across from me and drew a cash flow diagram on a napkin that was so clear I actually laughed out loud. He looked up and said, "Most people don't laugh at depreciation schedules." I said, "Most people don't explain them like they're trying to entertain someone." We studied together for the rest of the semester. By spring, we were inseparable. Daniel was the son of Nigerian immigrants. His mother, Grace, was a retired pediatric nurse with a laugh so big it reorganized whatever room she was in. His father had passed when Daniel was 16, and Grace had finished raising him and his younger brother alone, working double shifts, saving everything, refusing every shortcut. Daniel had her work ethic and his own particular brand of quiet, unshakable confidence. He did not raise his voice to make a point. He did not perform his intelligence. He simply knew things, built things, fixed things, and showed up fully for every person he cared about. We dated for 2 years before I took him home to Crestwood. My mother smiled the way people smile in photographs, wide, deliberate, and slightly frozen. She called him David twice at dinner. My father shook his hand at the door and spent the rest of the evening on the other side of the room. Camille was kind. Genuinely. She pulled me aside in the kitchen and whispered, "He's amazing, Nadia. But you know how Mom is." I said I did. I didn't, not yet. Not fully. Daniel proposed during our final year of graduate school, not with a ring at first, just a conversation on the fire escape of our apartment. The city stretched out below us, his voice steady and certain. He said he wanted to build a life with me, that he had never been more sure of anything. I said yes before he finished the sentence. I called home that night. My mother answered. I told her. The silence that followed lasted 8 full seconds. I know because I counted them while standing in our tiny kitchen holding the phone with both hands. Then she said, "Nadia, this is going to be very complicated for this family. Not congratulations. Not what's the ring like. Not I love you. A warning." 3 weeks later, a letter arrived at my apartment. My mother's handwriting on cream stationery, for paragraphs, each one more controlled and deliberate than the last. The final paragraph said, "If you proceed with this marriage, you are choosing to leave this family behind. We cannot and will not support this. Do not expect a seat at our table if you walk down that aisle. Daniel is not who we are, Nadia. He is not what we are." I read it twice, folded it, slid it into a manila envelope. Something in me, the part that files receipts in alphabetical order and never throws away a bank statement, said hold on to this. So I did. We were married on a Saturday in September at the county courthouse with 19 guests, all friends, and Daniel's family. Grace flew in from Atlanta in a copper-colored dress and a hat that made 3 separate strangers stop and compliment her on the way inside. She held my face in her hands before the ceremony and said, "You are exactly who I hoped for him." There was no father walking me down the aisle. There was no aisle. There was a fluorescent hallway and a judge who stumbled over Daniel's last name and a reception at an Ethiopian restaurant where we pushed 3 tables together, and one of Daniel's college friends gave a toast that made Grace laugh so hard she knocked over a pitcher of Tudge. My dress was cream silk from a sample sale on 5th Street. Daniel wore a charcoal suit he'd had since his graduate school interviews. We looked like 2 people who had just done the most important thing of their lives on a budget because we had. That night, alone in our apartment, I sat on the edge of the bed and shook. Not from doubt, from grief. I had just gotten married, and the 2 people who raised me hadn't bothered to come. The 2 people who taught me to pray and drive and balance a checkbook and write thank you notes had looked at the invitation and chosen silence. I let myself cry for about 10 minutes. Then I dried my face, took a breath, and mailed a card to Crestwood the next morning. Inside was our courthouse photo, Daniel and me grinning on the front steps. On the back I wrote, "We are happy. I hope someday you can be too." The card came back 11 days later, stamped in red. Returned to sender. I opened the manila envelope, placed it inside, uncapped a red pen, and wrote, "Item 1. Wedding photo. Returned." That was the first entry. The binder didn't exist yet, just a manila envelope getting heavier. Year 1 was the longest of my life. I called home 4 times. 4 voicemails, each one carefully worded, the kind of message where you rehearse 3 times before you dial because you know it might be the last one she ever listens to. "Mom, it's me. I just wanted to say hello. Daniel is well. I passed my CPA boards. I miss you. Please call when you're ready." She never called. I sent a birthday card, a Christmas card, a card for my father's retirement anniversary. All 3 returned with the red stamp. My father sent one text in February. For words, your mother needs space. That was it. No follow-up. The 4 words sat in my phone like a bruise I kept pressing. Camille posted a family photo on Instagram that April. Mom, Dad, Camille, Camille's then boyfriend. Captioned, my everything. I was not in the photo. I had not been invited. I printed the screenshot, labeled it, dated it, filed it. Year 2, Daniel quit his corporate job. Not impulsively. He had been building something on the side for 8 months, a financial literacy platform aimed at first-generation college students and recent immigrants, the people most likely to be exploited by bad credit products and predatory loans, the people least likely to have a parent who could explain compound interest or credit utilization. He knew the problem personally. He had watched his mother navigate the American financial system with no guide and no margin for error. He wanted to build the guide. I understood every number in his plan, the acquisition cost, the lifetime user value, the grant funding model. I helped him build the financial projections at our kitchen table between midnight and 2 in the morning while he coded. We called it ClearPath Financial. It launched with a free app, a YouTube channel, and $11,000 from a small business grant. It crashed twice in the first week. By then, the manila envelope had become a proper binder. Navy blue, 3-ring, from the office supply store on the corner. I organized it by year, red pen tabs, everything labeled and dated. Daniel asked me once why I kept all of it. I sat with the question for a moment and then told him the truth. Because our children will ask someday why they don't have grandparents on my side, and I want them to have facts. Not my version. Not Beverly's version. The actual receipts. He nodded. He understood receipts. He had grown up watching his mother keep every bill and every proof of payment in a shoebox under her bed because she had learned early that the world did not take your word for things. Jasmine and Eli were born on a Thursday in April. Jasmine came out screaming, 8 pounds even, furious at the whole arrangement. Eli followed 4 minutes later, quiet, looking around like he was taking inventory. Daniel stood at the window of the delivery room, holding one of them in each arm, and wept without making a sound. Grace flew in from Atlanta the next morning and did not leave for 3 weeks. She cooked, she cleaned, she rocked Eli through the 3 a.m. hours while I fed Jasmine, and she sang them songs in Yoruba that neither of them understood, but both of them clearly loved. She brought hand-knit blankets in yellow and green and 2 silver rattles engraved with their names. That was what a grandmother looked like. I had sent my mother the ultrasound photos 6 months earlier. Returned. I sent birth announcements, 1 for each twin, with a hospital photo tucked inside. Returned. I sent follow-up photos, Eli asleep on Daniel's chest, Jasmine gripping my finger, every single one returned. 3 items added to the binder. Items 12, 13, 14. Camille texted a mutual friend from high school, and the mutual friend forwarded it to me. Camille's message read, she made her choice. Those babies don't have real grandparents because of her. I read that text in the nursery with Eli in my arms and Grace humming in the kitchen. My children had a grandmother. Her name was Grace Okafor, and she flew from Atlanta every 6 weeks and never once forgot a birthday. I printed the screenshot, filed it. Item 15.
I want to be honest about something.
I did not keep that binder as a weapon. I did not flip through it in bed at night nursing fantasies of confrontation. For most of the year, I forgot it existed. It sat in the bottom drawer under tax folders. But every time something arrived, a returned card, a forwarded screenshot, a voicemail I couldn't delete because deleting it felt like erasing proof, I filed it. Same process every time. Print, label, date, red pen. Because I had learned, growing up in Beverly Harmon's house, that documentation was the only thing that could not be rewritten by whoever told the story loudest. By year 5, ClearPath Financial had 32 employees, a real office in downtown Indianapolis, and a partnership with 2 community college systems. Daniel was still writing code at 6 a.m., still refusing to become the kind of founder who forgot how to build the product. I had joined the company full-time as CFO the year before, and my name was on every financial filing that left the building. We bought our first house, a 4-bedroom craftsman in the Broad Ripple neighborhood, hardwood floors, a backyard with an old oak tree the twins immediately declared sovereign territory. I remember signing the mortgage papers and sitting in the empty kitchen for 10 minutes after the attorney left, just listening to the silence of something we had built from nothing. Nobody gave us this. Not a parent's credit score. Not a family connection. Not a single dollar from anyone with our last name. The twins started school. The silence from Crestwood had become like weather. I noticed it some days, didn't others. My father sent a text on my birthday that year. 3 words. Hope you're well. I stared at it for a long time. 3 words in 5 years. I saved it, filed it. Item 20. Grace visited every 6 weeks. Jasmine called her Grandma Grace, said it with the confidence of someone who had never needed a second grandmother because this one was already filling the whole room. Then year 6 happened, and everything started quietly accelerating. ClearPath received its series of funding, $8 million from a fintech impact fund in Chicago. I did the math at the kitchen table while Daniel was making the twins' lunches. Post-money valuation, $42 million. We were not rich. Not yet. But the trajectory had changed. I left my accounting firm and came on as CFO full-time. I was 30 years old. My name was on the company paperwork next to Daniel's. Partners in everything. 3 weeks after the TechCrunch write-up ran, a woman I had known from high school texted me. Hey, kind of random, but your mom asked my mom at church what series of funding means. Just thought you'd want to know. I read that text 3 times. Beverly Harmon had not spoken my name in 6 years. She didn't know what Series A meant, but she wanted to. The same year, I sent what I already knew would be my last birthday card to my mother. I had sent one every year. 6 straight years, 6 returned, each one filed with the red pen. But this time, I tucked a photograph inside. Jasmine and Eli at their school fall festival, matching red sweaters, Eli missing his 2 front teeth, Jasmine grinning so wide her eyes were almost closed. On the back of the photo I wrote, "They ask about you sometimes. I tell them you live far away." I sealed the envelope and mailed it. 11 days was the usual. It came back in 9. But when it arrived, something was different. The flap of the envelope had been opened. Someone had cut the seal and then carefully reglued it with a thin strip of clear tape. I held it up to the window light. The card was inside. The photo was inside. But they had been taken out, held, looked at, and then placed back and returned. I sat at the kitchen table for a long time. My father had opened that envelope. He had held that photo of his grandchildren. He had seen Eli's missing teeth and Jasmine's wide grin. And then Beverly had made him send it back. He had wanted to keep it. She had made him let it go. Item 23. Red pen, dated. Birthday card. Year 6. Opened. Photo viewed. Still returned. Year 7. Forbes included ClearPath on its Financial Innovators to Watch list. Small mention, 2 sentences, but it was Forbes. The day the article posted, I noticed activity on my LinkedIn. Someone from Crestwood, Indiana, using a private browser, had viewed my profile 4 times in 1 week. The location was right there in the analytics. 3 days later, my old contact Priya called. She sounded unsettled. Nadia, Camille added me to a family group chat by mistake. I think she meant someone else, similar number. I was in it for 4 days before they realized. I took screenshots. She sent me 7. I read them in the parking lot of Jasmine's gymnastics class. Engine off, the windows fogging from the outside cold. Camille, his company's post money is over $40 million. I've been tracking the funding disclosures. If they IPO, it's $200 million minimum. Mom, we need a plan. Beverly, she won't listen to emotion. She's a numbers person. How do we approach this? Raymond, maybe I should call first. Feel her out. Beverly, no. I need to go in person. With documentation. Something concrete. Camille, make it look like family investment, not a request. Layer it. Start with the urgent stuff, the house, dad's health, then build to the bigger things. Beverly, she has more resources than this entire town. She can afford to take care of her family. Raymond, I'm not sure this is the right thing. Beverly Raymond. She's our daughter. Raymond had not replied after that last message. I sat in that parking lot and stared through the windshield at the soccer field where Eli was doing warm-up drills, his little legs churning across the grass. My hands were not shaking. That surprised me. I had expected to shake. Instead, I felt something settle, something cold and clarifying, the way a balance sheet settles when you've finally found the discrepancy you've been looking for months. 9 years of silence. 9 years of returned birthday cards and ignored grandchildren, and a cream-colored letter that said do not come back. And now that the numbers had grown large enough to be visible from Crestwood, Indiana, Beverly Harmon was planning an approach. I drove home, printed the screenshots, opened the binder. Item 26. Family group chat. Financial reconnaissance. Confirmed premeditation. I told Daniel that night after the kids were asleep. He read the screenshots the way he reads code, slowly, methodically, looking for the logic underneath. When he finished, he set the phone on the counter and was quiet for almost a full minute. Then he said, "What do you want to do?" I said, "Nothing yet, but I want to be ready." He nodded. He did not tell me how to feel. He did not suggest I forgive or cut off or confront or avoid. He asked what I needed and then stood next to me while I figured it out. That was Daniel. That had always been Daniel. I called an attorney the following week. Not to file anything, not to threaten anything, just to understand my position. Her name was Renata. Mid-50s, direct, the kind of woman who had seen every version of this story before yours. She walked me through it in 20 minutes. Beverly had no legal standing. Our trusts were ironclad. No grandparent visitation rights in Indiana without an established prior relationship, and 9 years of documented estrangement made any petition laughable. I thanked her, hung up, and spent the following hour transferring every item in the binder into a master index. 40 entries now, organized by year and category. Correspondence, communications, third-party documentation, financial surveillance evidence. The index ran to 3 pages. Year 9. The IPO conversation began in February. Investment bankers flew in from New York. We had 6 meetings in our conference room over 2 months. They used words like roadshow and pricing window and lockup period. Marcus handled the platform architecture pitch. I handled every number, every projection, every risk disclosure. Every SEC filing that left our office had my signature. CFO.
Co-founder.
The person who had started this on a kitchen table at midnight with a spreadsheet and a thermos of cold coffee and a husband who refused to stop believing in what he was building. The process took 8 months. The twins, now 9, started to notice the pressure in our house. Eli asked why I was always on the phone. Jasmine drew a picture of me at my desk and put it on the refrigerator with a caption, "Mommy working." One evening in August, Daniel walked into the office where I was reviewing disclosure documents at 10 o'clock and stood in the doorway without speaking. I looked up. He said, "Come to bed. The numbers will still be wrong in the morning." I laughed for the first time in about 4 days. In September, our attorney finalized the children's trust structure. 2 irrevocable trusts, fully funded, protected from any third-party claim. I signed the documents in a corner office overlooking the White River. Afterward, I asked the attorney one question. If a family member attempted to assert access to these funds or to the children's assets, what recourse would they have? She said, "None. That's the architecture." I drove home, made dinner, helped Eli with multiplication tables, listened to Jasmine read aloud from a chapter book. Then I noticed something. The LinkedIn views from Crestwood, Indiana had stopped entirely. No church gossip texts from Priya. No digital footprints. Radio silence. The dangerous kind. The kind that means someone is done watching and has started moving. Camille texted me 6 weeks before the IPO. First contact in 9 years.
Hey.
I've been thinking about you. How are Jasmine and Eli? 9 years. No call, no card, no reply to the birth announcements. And now, how are the kids? As if we had simply been out of touch, the way you lose touch with a college roommate, a gentle drift instead of a deliberate severing. I did not reply for 5 days. She followed up, I'll actually be in Indianapolis next month for a conference. Would love to grab coffee. I agreed. 1 hour. A coffee shop in Fountain Square. Public, neutral, exits clearly visible. Camille arrived 12 minutes late in a blazer and statement earrings, looked incredible, and hugged me like someone who had practiced the hug. She said, "You look amazing" 3 times in the first 8 minutes. Then she started asking questions. How big is the house? Private school or public? Which neighborhood? Has Daniel stepped back from the operational side? How many employees? Have you raised additional rounds recently? Are you planning to stay in Indianapolis after? She caught herself. After what? She smiled. After the next phase, she said. 31 questions. I counted every one of them. Not one of them was, I am sorry. Not one of them was, I want to explain why I never came to meet your babies. Halfway through our coffees, I noticed her phone, face up on the table, angled slightly toward the window. She was photographing my car in the lot outside. A black Audi SUV, nothing flashy. She was cataloging, reporting, building a file to bring home to Beverly. I let her finish. I answered her questions the way you answer a stranger on an airplane, politely, vaguely, pleasantly, revealing nothing structural. When we hugged goodbye, she held on too long. I drove straight home and opened the binder. Item 39. Reconnaissance visit. 31 questions. No apology. Vehicle photographed. Red pen. Dated. Then I called Renata. They're coming, I told her. My mother. Before the IPO or right after? Renata asked what kind of demands. I told her about the group chat, Camille's instructions to layer it, make it look like family investment. Renata was quiet, then said, You have documentation. I have a binder. How thorough? 40 entries, 9 years, sourced and dated. Another pause. Nadia, you don't need me for the confrontation. The legal protections are already in place. What you're describing is personal, and for that you just need to decide what you're willing to say. She was right.
This wasn't about law.
It was about whether I was going to let Beverly Harmon walk into my house and rewrite 9 years of calculated, deliberate silence into a story about a misunderstanding. I sat at my desk that night and pulled out the index one had typed. Read it once. Put it back. I didn't need a letter. I had the binder itself. 40 items. Every returned card still in its envelope. Every voicemail still transcribed. Every piece of proof that my mother had chosen, clearly and repeatedly, and without apology, to erase me. ClearPath Financial went public on a Wednesday in October. Daniel and I stood on the floor of the NASDAQ in New York City, him in a dark blue suit, me in a burgundy blazer, and we watched the stock open at $16 a share. By noon, 19. By close, 23. Market cap, $380 million. Daniel and I held 12%. Net worth on paper, $45 million. I stared at that number for a full 30 seconds and felt nothing except the urge to check the formula. I checked the formula. The formula was correct. That was literally my job. We celebrated with room service and a bottle of champagne we barely touched. The twins were in Indianapolis with Grace, who had flown in for the week and was probably teaching them card games and letting them stay up past 9. Daniel fell asleep on the hotel couch at 10 o'clock, still wearing his jacket. I stayed awake, not because of the IPO. That part felt more like relief than celebration, the feeling of setting down something heavy you had been carrying across a long room. I stayed awake because I knew what was coming. I checked my phone. 7 missed calls. Area code 463. Crestwood. My father's voicemail arrived the next morning. His voice was older, quieter, the familiar measured cadence, but something fractured underneath it.
Nadia.
Baby girl, I saw you on the news. I saw you and Daniel on that floor, and I didn't know what to say, so I just needed to call. I'm proud of you. I have always been proud of you. A long pause, breathing. Your mother would like to talk. She has some things she wants to discuss. Call when you can.
I love you, Nadia.
I played it 3 times. Then I played it a 4th time and listened to the structure of it. He called after the IPO. Not after the twins were born. Not after any of the 7 birthday cards. Not after the birth announcements. Not after the opened and resealed envelope with the photo he had looked at and had to give back. He called after the IPO. He had always loved me. He had never been brave enough to love me out loud when there was nothing financially attached to the call. I saved the voicemail. I did not add it to the binder. It was too sad for the binder. Beverly's text arrived 2 days after we landed home. Long, no typos, carefully composed. The product of multiple drafts. Nadia, I know we've lost years that can't be replaced. I think about you and the children often. Life is short, and I've come to understand that some things are bigger than the disagreements that kept us apart. I would like to speak with you about the future, about what family means, and about what we might be able to build together. I believe there is a path forward if you're willing to find it. 61 words. 0 apologies. Not one mention of what she had done. Not one acknowledgement of the birthday cards or the returned photos or the 9-year silence she had enforced like a policy. She called it the disagreements that kept us apart, as if estrangement was a weather event that had happened to both of us equally, rather than a choice she had written in blue ink on cream stationery and mailed to my apartment. I screenshotted it, printed it, opened the binder. Item 40. First text from Beverly in 9 years. 61 words. 0 accountability. Red pen. Dated. Then I closed the binder, put it back in the drawer, and looked at the framed photo on my desk. Daniel and me and the twins at the Indiana Dunes. All 4 of us sunburned and squinting, Eli on Daniel's shoulders, Jasmine holding my hand, the lake enormous and silver behind us. That was my answer. That had always been my answer. Priya called on a Friday. Your mom is coming, Nadia. Camille told Linda at her salon that Beverly is packing a bag and booking a flight to Indianapolis. She told her she's going to sit down with you and have a real conversation about the family's future. I closed my eyes. I know. You know. I've known since the group chat. A pause. What are you going to do? I'm going to open the door. And then I'm going to show her what I've been keeping for 9 years. She arrived on a Tuesday morning. I watched from the kitchen window as the rideshare pulled up and my mother stepped out, gray wool coat, pearl earrings, the carry-on suitcase with the worn handles. She stood on the sidewalk and looked at the house the way an appraiser looks at a property, taking inventory of the craftsman details, the porch, the garden beds Daniel had planted in spring, the front walk where the twins had drawn chalk outlines of every animal they could name. She stood there for almost a full minute. Then she walked up the path and rang the bell. I let her in. I did not lead her to the living room. I led her to the kitchen, where the light was good and the table was wide and the refrigerator was covered in Grace's photos and the twins' artwork and a map of the world covered in jasmine sticker pins marking every country she intended to visit. Beverly sat down. I poured 2 glasses of water.
No tea.
No coffee. Coffee was for people who were staying. Beverly looked around the kitchen, taking it in. Her eyes stopped on Grace's photograph. Grace at the beach with Jasmine and Eli on her lap, all 3 of them laughing, Jasmine's hands in the air, Eli's eyes squeezed shut with delight. Beverly stared at that photo for several seconds. I could not read the expression precisely. I thought it might be grief pretending to be something harder. Then she unfolded the paper. Her handwriting blue ink, 5 neat bullet points. She placed it on the table and read each item aloud in the measured tone of someone presenting a budget proposal. Retirement supplement for your father and me, $400,000. Educational trust for Camille's son, Tyler, $175,000. Your father's medical procedures, both scheduled and pending, $62,000. Mortgage payoff on the family home, $190,000. Monthly family support, $3,000 ongoing. She set the paper on the table. This is what family does for each other, Nadia. Your father worked his whole life. He sacrificed for you, for both of you girls. It's time. Total on the list, approximately $927,000. Presented without apology, without context, without a single acknowledgement of where we had been for the last 9 years. As though the invoice had simply arrived late. I stared at the list. Then I stood up, walked to my office, opened the bottom drawer, reached past the tax folders and insurance documents, and pulled out the navy binder. I carried it back to the kitchen and set it on the table directly next to her folded piece of paper. Beverly looked at it. What is that? I sat down, placed both hands flat on the table. You brought a list, Mom. I kept one too. She stared at the binder, at the red pen labels visible through the clear cover, at the thickness of it, nearly 3 inches of tabs and documents and printed screenshots and sealed envelopes with red stamps across their faces. I don't understand. You will. I opened to tab 1. Year 1. I began reading. Not performing. Not crying. Not pleading. I read the way I presented financial disclosures to a board of directors. Measured, factual, chronological. Every item. Every date. Every piece of evidence that Beverly Harmon had made a choice, clearly and repeatedly, to excise her firstborn daughter from the family record. Not because I had done anything wrong. Because I had loved someone she refused to accept. I laid out the first 3 envelopes one by one on the table. Birthday card. Wedding photo.
Christmas card.
Each one still sealed. Each one bearing the red stamp. Return to sender. Beverly's mouth opened. I kept going. Voicemail transcripts. Unanswered call logs. The Instagram post, her whole world in 3 people, none of them me. Tab 2 year 2. Tab 3. Tab 4. The text from Camille about my children not having real grandparents. Beverly flinched. I moved to the screenshots. 7 pages. The family group chat. Camille's instructions to layer the financial requests. Beverly's own words. She has more money than this entire town. She can afford to take care of her family. Something changed in Beverly's face when I read those messages. The theatrical dampness around her eyes evaporated. Something harder appeared underneath. The same expression I had watched her make my entire childhood when she was caught. Not guilty, not sorry, just recalculating. You had no right to access that conversation. You had no right to return photographs of your grandchildren. The kitchen went absolutely still. Then I reached for item 23. The envelope with the creased flap, the clear tape resealing what had been carefully cut. I held it up. This card was open, Mom. Someone removed the photo of Jasmine and Eli at the fall festival. Someone held it, then put it back and sent it away. I set it on the table. Dad opened it. He wanted to keep it. And you made him send it back. Beverly's jaw tightened. Her hands, flat on the table, pressed down harder. Then she said something so quiet I almost missed it. If I had let him keep it, if I had let any of it in, I would have had to admit I was wrong. That I threw away 9 years over something she stopped. Swallowed. For one full second, something honest moved across her face. Something that had been buried under a decade of silence and posture and pride. Real fear. The kind that lives under anger long enough to forget it's separate. Then it was gone. Her chin came up. Her shoulders squared. You still chose to leave us. You made your choice. I placed her list on the left side of the table. I placed the binder on the right. Your list. Just under $1 million. 5 bullets. No apology. I touched the binder. My list. 40 items. 9 years. Every door I tried to open. Every birthday card returned. Every photo of your grandchildren you looked at and gave back. Every year of silence. Beverly's nostrils flared. I continued because I had been waiting 9 years to say this, and I was going to finish. You didn't come here because you missed me. You came here because the numbers changed. And if I hand you a check, you will tell yourself the silence was a misunderstanding. You will tell Camille the 9 years were a rough patch. They were not a rough patch. They were a choice. Your choice, written in blue ink, documented in 40 items, dated and filed. The garage door rolled open. Daniel came in through the laundry room, keys in one hand, laptop bag on his shoulder. He saw Beverly. He saw the binder. He saw me. He didn't say a word. He set his bag on the counter, crossed the kitchen, and sat down beside me. His hand rested on my shoulder. That was all. No speech, no confrontation. Just a man sitting next to his wife. Beverly looked at him, at the flannel shirt and the running shoes and the inexpensive watch, at the man she had decided 9 years ago was not one of us, who had turned out to be the person who showed up every single time. She looked at his hand on my shoulder, and she understood. I had not needed the Archer family. I had built my own. I spoke quietly.
Mom.
I'm not giving you money. Not because we can't. Because the moment I do, you will believe you were right to wait. You will tell yourself the silence was a strategy that worked. You will call Camille from the airport and say Nadia came through for the family. I held out her list. It was not a rough patch. It was not a disagreement. It was a woman who told her daughter not to come back and spent 9 years making sure she couldn't. If you want to know your grandchildren, that starts with an apology. Not to me.
To them.
And it doesn't start today. It starts when you're ready to mean it. Beverly took the list. She picked up her suitcase. She walked to the front door, stopped, turned back. Her mouth opened. Something passed across her face that I had waited for my entire adult life, and then she walked out. The door clicked shut. Not a slam. A click. The sound of someone who has finally understood what they have lost and knows for the first time that it cannot be purchased back. 2 weeks passed. We did not talk about Beverly often, not because we were avoiding it, but because there was nothing unresolved. She had come with a list. I had shown her a binder. She had left without apologizing. The equation was complete. The twins did not know she had come. They were at school for both arrival and departure. They would learn about Beverly Harmon when they were old enough to understand that some people can only see you when the light is expensive. My father called on a Tuesday morning. Not a Sunday, not a holiday. A Tuesday. 9:14 in the morning while I was reviewing a vendor contract.
Nadia.
Your mother told me what happened. I've been sitting with it. His voice was thinner than I remembered. I should have opened that door 9 years ago. I should have called when the twins were born. I should have driven to Indianapolis the day I found out. I didn't. And I'm calling now to say I'm sorry. Not about the money. I don't want anything from you. I want to know my grandchildren, and I want to know if that's still possible. I was quiet for 17 seconds. Then, I believe you, Dad. But believing you and trusting you are different things. We start slow. Phone calls. No visits yet. No money. Just talking. He said, "That's more than I deserve." I said, "It's exactly what you deserve. Not more, not less." We hung up. I went back to my contract. Camille sent one text 2 days later. "You could have just helped us." I did not reply. Some messages carry their own answer already written inside them. Beverly did not contact me again. The silence returned, but it was different now. Before, the silence had been hers to wield. Now it was simply what remained after the truth had been spoken. The binder sat in the bottom drawer. 40 items. 9 years. I did not add a 41st. I hoped I would never have to. Here is what 9 years of silence taught me. Family is not the people who share your last name. Family is not the people who appear at your door when your net worth clears 8 figures. Family is the people who showed up when the garage was cold and the startup had 11 customers and the babies needed rocking at 3 a.m. The people who fly from Atlanta every 6 weeks and never once ask what's in it for them. The people who sit down next to you without being asked because they know you need them there. I had that. I had always had that. And it had nothing to do with the numbers. It never did. 9 years. 40 items. 1 navy binder. And a kitchen table where the truth finally had enough room to breathe. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. And if this story meant something to you, if it found you at the right moment, like, subscribe and share it with someone who needs to hear it. There's another story in the description waiting for you. Something tells me you'll want to stay.
Until next time.